Today we're going to take a look at the HTML video player. This is a custom video player or custom controlled video player using HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS. So again, basically we were supposed to create custom controls, building out the JS script for it. So here I've got my custom controlled video player. We were supposed to build out the functions for toggling the video player from play to pause, update button, which would allow the video player to show us whether or not we were playing or pausing, the skip function, which would allow us to move the progress forward or back on the video player, the range updater, which would allow us to adjust the volume and playback rate, the progress bar, which would allow us to move to different parts in the video using that progress bar, and the scrub, which would allow us to see the movement in the video. So let's go ahead and just demonstrate the usage. So as you can see, I'm going to press the play button and the video starts and it plays, and as you can see, the pause button is here to show us that if we press it, we'll get the pause. Then there is volume control, which is the toggle bar here. So if I turn it down, then the volume decreases, and up it increases. And then the playback rate, which increases from 0.5 speed to 2. So again, we can see that the movement bars here work. Then we have the skip, which will allow us to skip back 10 seconds or forward 25 seconds. Now I've built two extra functionalities into this, and this is the mute button, which will allow me to mute the sound. And the icon shows that the volume is muted and is playing again. And I've also included a full screen toggle here. And you just use escape to escape out of that window. Alright, so we've seen the basic functionality. Now let's take a look at the code. Alright, so I didn't change anything in the HTML except for adding those two extra buttons, the full screen and the mute button here and here. And the only thing that I changed in the style CSS was this progress filled CSS. For some reason it had the base bar starting at 50%. I just changed it to 0 so that that's where the progress bar would start. Okay, so taking a look at the JS itself. Now I've created some constants: player, video, progress, progress bar, toggle, skip buttons, which are the forward and back buttons, and ranges, which are the sliders for the volume and playback speed. I've also included the full screen button and the mute button here. Alright, so the first function was toggle play. What this does is it takes the attribute paused and checks against it. If the video is paused, then when you press the play button, it will play, and if it's playing, it will pause. Same thing with the update button. I'm checking the paused attribute. If the video is paused, then you will see the button for the play, the right arrow, and if it's playing, then you'll see the button for pause, or the double upright bars. The next is the skip function, and all this does is it takes the current time and it uses the skip attribute on each of those buttons from the data set, and it will parse the float. So basically this is a string coming in, so it parses the string into a float and it adds that to the current time. Then for the volume and speed range bars, get rid of this display here. We don't need a console coming up every time you move the bar. this will basically just take that range bar, and whether it's volume or playback rate, it will move that or make that value equal to whatever we move the slider to. Then we have show progress in relation to duration. So this is the progress bar. And the progress bar just basically sets a percentage of the current time divided by video duration and multiplying it by 100 to get that percent. And then it's going to set that progress bar by showing the flex basis, and that was the style CSS that we saw here. It will increase that, that rate by the percentage that's passed in. The next is the scrub. So the scrub, just when you're playing the video, so if we go back to the video real fast and we play it, the scrub allows us to drag in either direction to move the video to that location. Okay. Then again, the added functionalities that I added to my video player was to set the full screen. So basically I just took the video from up here, which is found by doing a query selector on player for the viewer. And I check to see, or I just request full screen, which definitely works with Chrome. I haven't tested it with Safari or Mozilla or Internet Explorer, but I'm hoping that it works on that. If not, I can build that functionality in, but for Chrome it definitely works. Then toggling the mute button. So what this does, it checks the muted attribute on the video player. If it is not muted, it will basically show that, or if it is muted, it will set the muted function or value to false, and it will show the speaker. Else, if it is muted, then it will set, or if it's not muted, it will set the value to true and then show the muted speaker. Alright, from here we just hook up our event listeners. So I've just listed them in more or less alphabetical order. So I set an attribute for the progress bar. I had to create a variable called mouse down just to check against a click and hold, so that when we're scrubbing we can actually drag the bar. So this will allow us to scrub that progress. Then we have the range listeners. So for each of the values in the range, so remember we have two different sets of ranges. The reason that we're checking for values or using the for each is that this range takes all of the values that are titled player or class title player slider, or have a class name of player slider, sorry. And whatever that range is, it will change that range by going to the handle range update, so it'll just change that value. And if there's a mouse move, it will update the range depending on the slider bar. Then we have the skip listeners. So again, these are just buttons. So skip buttons. It is plural here because it checks for all, or it does the query selector all on anything labeled data skip here. And if we go to our HTML, we can see player button for those classes, player slider for the range classes, and sorry, where was it? Data skip is what we were looking for those skip buttons. So again, the skip listeners look for that skip button. If it whatever listener it brings in, whether that be the forward skip or the reverse skip, it just takes it in and then runs the skip function on the value that's passed in. Then we have our update listeners. This is just looking for the button clicks. So we have our toggle button. This is toggling from play to pause. We have the full screen button, which clicks to toggle our view to full screen, and the mute button, which toggles the mute button from mute to unmute. Then we have our video players and listeners. So this just takes in and listens for a click on the play button or a click on the video itself, and it will toggle the play button. If it's playing, I will update the button to show that the pause symbol, so that if we click it, it will pause. If it's paused, it will show the play symbol, and if or while it's progressing, it will handle the progress bar via the time update. All right, so we've seen the code coming in for this HTML video player. We've seen it play the video, scrub the video, volume down on the video, mute, increase or decrease the playback speed. Don't know what happened there. Increase or decrease the playback speed. It will skip back and it will skip forward, as well as go to full screen. So if there are any questions, just please feel free to post them in the forum and I will answer them as soon as I possibly can. Thank you.